Hi guys, it's Frankie from Frankie Tech. Good to see you guys again. And today I have a video of another comparison here I wanted to make with MIUI 12 versus none other than Oxygen OS. Now before I get started, I want to preface this by saying this is the China ROM version of the OnePlus 8 Pro. This is running Hydrogen OS. Now what is Hydrogen OS? It is essentially the China ROM version of Oxygen OS. Once you install Google Apps on this phone, it is pretty much the same thing. And so for simplicity's sake, I'll be mentioning this as Oxygen OS versus MIUI 12. Now, the thing about Oxygen OS we all know is that this Android skin has by far gained such a great reputation over the past couple years. And if you saw the poll that I ran on Twitter yesterday, it was MIUI 12 and Oxygen OS that ranked highest amongst all the Android skins I'd mentioned. This is a great Android skin, and a lot of people consider it even better than stock Android. So what gives? Why is that the case? And how does this new release of MIUI 12 compare to Oxygen OS? Let's have a look. So starting at the lock screens once again, and just want to dispel the idea that this Mars planet doesn't move around the display. It is actually shifting, guys, all the time. So don't worry about screen burn-in because of that. But let's go ahead and do the fingerprint scanner on both of these phones in 3, 2, 1. And there we see it. And so Oxygen OS is doing something kind of similar to Real MIUI. It's going in pretty quick. Meanwhile, we saw that big animation with the super wallpaper here on MIUI 12. But if you notice once again, the icons come up, but then the wallpaper actually does a little dance as well. So unlike Real MIUI, which I think is a bit kind of on the utilitarian side, there are flourishes that you see on Oxygen OS, which really give a nice touch to kind of getting into the phone. And once you're in the phone, you have a series of icons, guys, that I think are some of the best we see on any Android skin. There's something about the circular nature of them, but also the simple but very kind of eye-catching look of these types of icons. I prefer the Oxygen OS icons even over the ones from Xiaomi, and I also prefer them over Real MIUI's icons as well. But what's one thing you notice here as you scroll? The wallpaper kind of shifts here on MIUI 12. It also shifts on Oxygen OS. So once again, you see these nice little kind of touches that Oxygen OS has that kind of separates itself from ColorOS and Real MIUI, which I feel can be a little bit static at times. And once again, I've set up the control center like this just to show the distinction between what it is that OnePlus is doing versus what Xiaomi is doing. And after a couple days in, guys, I'm actually starting to get used to this control center. I don't mind it. I'm going to keep it like that. At least it feels like I'm getting a new phone and kind of a fresh coat of paint with this kind of setup. But I gotta tell you, from the animations to the simplicity, this control center on OnePlus phones is by far my favorite of any Android phone. And it's not so much about the look. It's a very kind of stock-like interface here. It's the animations, guys. They are so slick. And you can see right here as you slowly move away, there's this like little carousel of icons that will just disappear off to the side. And then you see these two icons slowly move down and become the front icons of the next row. That is just such a gorgeous little animation there. And it is these kind of little touches is what really separates Oxygen OS from what we see from any of the other Android skins on the market. And once again, I've opted for the standard view here with no app drawer on MIUI 12, while here you see the app drawer on Oxygen OS. It is a nice, clean look. Everything works very well, and I still, though, you see that little bounce effect at the end once you get to the top. Another nice little UI touch there on this phone. But when it comes to wallpapers, like I mentioned yesterday, the wallpapers on MIUI 12 are fantastic. But they're going toe-to-toe with what I consider some of the most beautifully designed Android wallpapers on any phone. And these are the ones from OnePlus in Oxygen OS. There's just something about the look of this, and it's almost become kind of iconic of OnePlus phones to have these gorgeous wallpapers that really kind of set the trend of what you see on Android phones. So let's go ahead and pick this one right here, applying selected wallpaper, and there you go. And what a stunning wallpaper. It is a static one, but it is a beautiful wallpaper for sure. Let's go ahead and switch over now to one of the static wallpapers for MIUI 12, and it's a beautiful wallpaper as well. And here you see in the settings a very different look for both of these. I really do prefer the bold text here of MIUI 12. But one thing that sets Oxygen OS apart has got to be the customizations. You can do so much to adjust the look of your device, from changing the theme completely. So let's switch to vibrant tints right here, changing the theme. And now you can see we've gone to this kind of dark mode, but also with these vibrant colors for each of the settings icons. You can go to light tones, you can go completely dark tones, but this this is one of the highlight features of customization on Oxygen OS. So you can see here accent color, and we've chosen AMOLED wide color gamut. Look at this, man. You can literally pick whichever color you want and create a custom color code here that will work with all of your settings icons and just the system in general. That is pretty awesome. So let's go to preset color. Let's do this light green, and there we go. And you can see it there. Now it is pretty much taken over the system in terms of the icons. System icons, you can adjust the shapes of those, and you can also adjust the icon packs. Now here you can see I've just switched over to the Hydrogen OS icons, which are kind of Squircle-like, similar to what you see on MIUI 12, but I'm going to go ahead and switch that back, and let's switch back to the Oxygen OS icons, which looks so much better. And it's not just because of the 120 Hz refresh rate, guys. One of the main key features of Oxygen OS has been speed, speed, speed. This is one of the fastest UI skins, and it has been since even the 6T and before that. And it's not to say that MIUI has improved over the years, but you do still see more stutters on MIUI 12 than you do see on something like Oxygen OS. Everything here just flies. It's so smooth, buttery smooth. All the animations just keep up with the phone. And that is, I think, what really separates Oxygen OS from not just MIUI 12, but every other Android skin. They have really focused on speed and fluidity. And bar none, it is the fastest and most fluid Android skin on the market. But now one area where I think MIUI 12 is really taking a step above is in the camera app. And I mentioned this in my original review, all the bold kind of look of the icons and all of the settings, it just makes a much more enjoyable shooting experience. But I will still say there's something about the actual app here on Oxygen OS. Maybe just the cleanness of the icons. It also has very bold text. It just looks really clean and really nice. And so depending on your preference, you may like one camera app over the other. I think the MIUI 12 camera app has made major improvements, but to me, it still doesn't reach the levels of cleanness of the Oxygen OS camera app. But beyond that, guys, there's one thing that I do appreciate from MIUI 12 is that there is a robust dark mode. And as I mentioned yesterday, it is a separate kind of mode, unlike on Oxygen OS, where you actually have to go to customize to be able to change the tone of the entire thing. And there we go, now in a dark mode. Unfortunately, and this is one of my big pet peeves of Oxygen OS, there's no dark mode toggle. That is a major negative here to setting up dark mode on Oxygen OS phones. And you have to really go and switch the entire theme to be able to do it. But in my opinion, I do like the fact that on MIUI 12, you can just go to the settings and you swipe down, and there we go, there's dark mode. I'm turning it off, and it is back to the regular kind of daylight mode here on MIUI 12. And one last thing I'll mention here, maybe you've noticed it, maybe you haven't, but let's go to settings. We see this home bar on both MIUI 12, but also on Oxygen OS. And actually, this home bar is a great way to know how to actually navigate through using gestures. Because beyond just swiping up, a lot of people don't use this gesture, but it is very powerful, is the opportunity to switch between apps at the bottom. And you can do the exact same thing here on Oxygen OS. Just two apps open right now. And yes, this can be removed in settings as well. You just go to full screen display. If you don't like that full screen indicator, you can turn it off. And I'm not exactly sure how to turn off this kind of home bar thing in settings here on Oxygen OS. If you do know, let me know. But I'm going to go ahead and leave that on because for me, I'm getting used to these iOS type features here on MIUI 12. Yes, they do take a lot from iOS, but once you start getting used to these features, these additional beautiful elements of MIUI 12 do make it a joy to use. And I think on flagship phones, you'll be able to keep a lot of these features on without affecting performance. And so here we go, guys. If I had to pick one of these software skins to use on the daily, which would I pick? It's really hard to say, guys. I have loved a lot of what MIUI 12 has brought to the table here, but I can't deny the fact. I've always been, guys, a stock Android lover, and I think the more Oxygen OS got right, the more it even surpassed stock Android in my view. This is the reason why people love using this software skin. And from the gorgeous animations in the control center to just the fluid, incredible experience here, I also have to say that Oxygen OS was one of the first Android skins to get close to the type of gesture navigation that we see on iOS, and it did it really, really well. But the last one, and the reason why I just love Oxygen OS so much, is the speed. This phone just flies, and there never are slowdowns on OnePlus phones. And I think a big part of this is because of this very lean but very well designed software skin, Oxygen OS. It is the best, in my opinion, software skin on any Android phone. And MIUI 12, I do love it. I think it's made major strides, but a lot of you do feel it is kind of going in an opposite direction of what we see a lot of companies doing, going more towards an iOS direction and less towards an Android direction. But I beg to differ. There are enough differences here from iOS, and I truly believe that what Xiaomi is doing is it's going in its own direction. And there are nice flourishes that you see on MIUI 12. A lot of people will appreciate. And if you're in the Xiaomi camp, you will be very happy with MIUI 12. It's a great release, but there's no denying if you want the most fast, most fluid, and what I consider the most polished Android skin on the market, look no further than Oxygen OS on OnePlus phones. But hit me up in the comments, MIUI 12 or Oxygen OS. Which one do you think is best? Hit me up in the comments. I'd love to hear about it. And that should be it, I think, for this software series I've done this week. I hope you've enjoyed it, guys. Software is what we interact with every day, so it's so great to kind of focus in on that and not just the typical hardware videos that I always do here on Frankie Tech. Hope you've enjoyed it, and thanks again for watching. But that's it for this video. If you liked it, give me that thumbs up. And if you love the content of Frankie Tech, subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell icon for future updates. More great phones, more great stuff on the horizon. But if you did want to see any kind of future software videos, do let me know and I'll be happy to do them. And that's it. This is where I leave you by saying, this is Frankie Tech signing off. Have a good one.